The city of Alendor burned. Fires spread across the shining towers that once touched the clouds, now broken and falling to the ground. Black smoke covered the sky, and the sound of war machines echoed in the distance. The Golden Palace, home of the royal family, was nothing more than shattered walls and ruined halls. Inside the remains of that palace, a young alien girl crawled through the rubble. Her name was Princess Elira, the last daughter of the Elendor royal line. She was small, fragile, her silver skin bruised and dirtied by dust. Her long, crystal-like hair, once decorated with jewels, was tangled and torn. She clutched a broken piece of cloth, the royal crest of her house, the only thing left to prove who she was. Her guards had fled the night before. They promised to protect her, but when the enemy breached the palace gates, they ran. Even her closest advisors betrayed her, hoping to save their own lives by swearing loyalty to the new rulers. Now, at only 16 cycles of age, Elira was alone. She stumbled through the wreckage, her thin arms shaking as she pushed aside a fallen beam. Her stomach ached with hunger, her throat dry from thirst. For 2 days she had survived by drinking dirty water and eating scraps from broken stores. The galaxy no longer cared for her. When the rebellion against the Empire failed, her family's name lost all meaning. The Empire announced that the princess had no claim, no value, no power. Other worlds did not come to her aid. Even neighboring allies closed their gates. To them, she was a useless heir of a broken line. As the sun set over the smoking ruins, Elira curled up beneath a collapsed pillar. She hugged the crest close to her chest and whispered to herself, voice trembling, "Mother, Father. Why did you leave me? Why did they all leave me?" Her tears mixed with the ash on her cheeks. She wanted to sleep, to forget, to disappear. Maybe if she closed her eyes long enough, she would never have to wake again. But fate had other plans. Far above the ruined planet, in the silent void of space, a human ship drifted. The vessel was not large. A sturdy freighter painted dark gray, its hull scarred from old battles. Inside, the hum of engines filled narrow corridors. The crew on board were humans, rough travelers of the stars, known for taking dangerous jobs that others refused. At the center of this ship stood Captain Grant, Hound. He was a tall man in his 40s, broad-shouldered, with scars across his arms and a rough beard. His eyes were sharp, carrying the weight of a soldier who had seen too many wars. Most called him Hound, not only for his name, but for his nature. Once he chose to protect someone, he never let go. The crew gathered around him in the control room. "Captain," one man said, pointing at the screen. "Scanners show survivors on the surface, but only one life signal left in the ruins." Another crew member frowned. "Forget it, Cap. That planet belongs to the Empire now. If we go down, we'll get caught. Not worth the risk." Hound crossed his arms. "One survivor?" "Yeah, small signal. Could be a child or just a dying animal. Either way, not our problem," the crew muttered in agreement. The Empire paid bounties for rebels, and saving anyone from Alendor would only bring trouble. But Hound did not move. His jaw tightened as he stared at the signal flickering on the screen. Something about it pulled at him. A lone life, left behind, forgotten by all. He had seen this too many times in war. Innocents abandoned while the powerful walked away. "Prepare the landing gear," Hound ordered. The crew protested at once. "Captain, are you serious? The Empire will—" "Not our fight. She's probably already dead." Hound slammed his fist against the console, silencing them. His voice was firm like steel. "No one gets left behind. Not while I'm still breathing." The room fell quiet. The crew exchanged uneasy looks, but they obeyed. They knew their captain's nature. When the Hound made a promise, nothing could turn him aside. The ship broke through the clouds, landing on the edge of the ruined city. Smoke curled around the landing pads as Hound stepped out first, carrying a rifle across his back. His boots crunched against the ash-covered streets. He moved with purpose, scanning the ruins. "Stay sharp," he told his men. "We're not here for loot. We're here for one life." The scanner led him to the palace ruins. The once golden gates lay in pieces, blackened by fire. Inside, the air smelled of dust and burned stone, and there, hidden beneath a collapsed pillar. Hound saw her, the small figure of a girl, curled up, clutching a torn cloth with weak arms. Her body trembled as if she felt the cold even in the heat of the fires. Hound stepped closer, his heavy shadow falling over her. Elira's eyes opened slowly. She saw a giant figure above her, human, armored, carrying weapons. Terror filled her chest. She tried to push herself back, but her strength was gone. Please," she whispered, voice broken. "Don't hurt me." Hound knelt beside her. His rough voice softened. "You're safe now, kid. I'm not here to hurt you." She blinked at him, confused. All her life, she had heard that humans were dangerous, ruthless mercenaries who fought only for money. Yet this man's eyes carried no greed, no cruelty, only loyalty. Who are you?" she asked weakly. He gave a small smile. "Name's Hound, Captain Hound, and you're the last princess of Elendor, aren't you?" Her lips trembled. They all left me, my guards, my people. No one came." Hound's jaw tightened. He had seen soldiers abandon civilians before. He hated it. "Well, I'm here now," he said firmly. He reached out and lifted her carefully into his arms, as if she were the most precious thing in the galaxy. Elira's eyes widened. No one had held her since the fall. No one had dared to protect her. Yet this human carried her as though she mattered. Her weak voice whispered, almost in disbelief, Why save me?" Hound looked down at her, his gaze steady. "Because a hound never leaves the weak behind. Not while I can still fight." When they returned to the ship, the crew's faces darkened. "Captain, you brought her? The princess? Are you mad?" one of them shouted. "She's worth nothing now. Only danger," another argued. "The Empire will come after us." Hound ignored their words. He carried Elira to the medbay, laying her gently on a bed. He ordered food, water, and medicine for her. The girl looked around with wide eyes, shocked by the human's strange ship. But even more shocking was the captain who stayed beside her, making sure she ate and drank. No one else in the galaxy cared if she lived or died, but this one man did. For the first time since the fall of her home, Elira allowed herself to hope. The hum of the ship's engines filled the air as Captain Hound stood beside the medbay bed. Princess Elira lay beneath soft blankets, her silver skin still pale from hunger and exhaustion. Her eyes were half closed, but she was alive. She sipped water slowly, hands trembling as though she feared even the cup would be taken away from her. Hound watched her carefully. He had seen countless soldiers recover from wounds, but this girl was different. She carried no weapons, wore no armor, and yet she carried the weight of a fallen world on her small shoulders. "Eat slowly," Hound told her, voice calm. "Your body needs time." Elira nodded, too weak to speak much. For the first time in days, warmth spread through her stomach as real food filled it. She wanted to thank him, but the words caught in her throat. She was still afraid that this was a dream, that at any moment the humans would throw her away like everyone else. In the corridor outside the medbay, Hound's crew gathered in a storm of whispers. "This is crazy!" "She's just a burden. The Empire will hunt us to the edge of the galaxy if they learn we're hiding her. She has no army, no throne. Why waste time?" Finally, one of his senior officers, a sharp-eyed woman named Vega, stepped forward. She confronted Hound as he came out of the medbay. "Captain, with respect," she said firmly. We can't keep her. You know what it means. Elendor is gone. The Empire owns that system now. Protecting her makes us enemies of the Empire, the crew murmured in agreement. Hound stood still for a moment, his arms crossed. His eyes swept over the men and women he trusted. They were scared, and he couldn't blame them. The Empire was merciless, but his voice, when it came, was steady as stone. You all know me. You know what I stand for. I've fought in wars where civilians were abandoned because they weren't useful. I've seen commanders leave soldiers behind because they weren't valuable. And I swore I'd never be that kind of man. He took a step closer, his deep voice echoing in the narrow corridor. That girl down there is alone. Her own people left her, but I won't. If the Empire wants her, they'll have to go through me first. That's my oath. The crew went silent. None dared argue further, not when the Hound's eyes burned with such loyalty. Hours later, Elira awoke fully and found Hound still sitting in a chair beside her bed. He had not left her side. Why do you stay? She asked softly, her voice still fragile. Hound leaned back, arms resting on his knees. Because you need someone. And I'm not in the business of walking away from people who need me. Her eyes filled with confusion. But I am nothing now. My people betrayed me. My crown is gone. Even if I live, no one will follow me. Hound shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't matter. You're still alive. That's enough for me. She studied him, her small hands clutching the blanket. Do humans always protect strangers like this? Hound chuckled, shaking his head. Not always. Some humans are selfish. Some are cruel. But some of us believe loyalty is worth more than gold. Her lips trembled. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Not even her guards, who once swore oaths to protect her, had shown this kind of devotion. You are different, she whispered. Maybe, Hound said. He leaned forward, his scarred hands clasped together. But I'll tell you this. As long as I'm breathing, I won't abandon you. That's a promise. Elira closed her eyes, holding on to those words as if they were the only light left in the darkness. The next day, the crew received troubling news. A transmission came through the ship's comms. A bounty notice. The Empire had announced that Princess Elira still lived. Her capture was worth a fortune, more credits than most smugglers and mercenaries would see in a lifetime. Every bounty hunter, pirate, and mercenary in the nearby systems would soon be hunting her. The crew gathered in the command deck, faces grim. Vega slammed the message onto the screen. This is what I warned you about, Captain. They know she survived. Every scum in the galaxy will come for her. We can't fight them all. The others muttered nervously, but Hound's voice cut through their fear like a blade. Let them come, he said coldly. We'll fight anyone who tries. She's under my protection. The crew looked at him in disbelief. Captain, Vega began. No, Hound snapped. His voice rose, filled with unshakable resolve. You all know what I am. I'm the Hound, and a hound never breaks his oath. The room fell silent. Though fear lingered, they knew there was no changing his mind. That evening, Elira walked into the command deck, her steps slow but stronger than before. She had overheard the whispers, the fear, the bounty. She knew she was a danger to everyone here. Her eyes lowered as she approached Hound. Captain, I should not stay. If I stay, they will all die because of me. You should let me go. Hound turned his head, staring at her as if she had spoken madness. Let you go? Onto whose hands? The Empire's? His voice was hard. You think they'll spare you? They'll drag you through the streets, make a show of you, and then kill you anyway. Is that what you want? Elira's chest tightened. No, but I don't want you to suffer because of me. Hound softened then. He stepped closer, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. Listen, princess, suffering is part of life. But loyalty, that's rare. You're not a burden. You're a life. And I don't abandon lives. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were not tears of despair. They were tears of something new. Hope. You really mean it, she whispered. Hound gave a firm nod. Every word. In the days that followed, Elira began to heal. Not only in body, but in spirit. She started to eat full meals. She asked questions about the ship, about humans, about their strange customs. She watched how the crew worked, how they joked, how they argued but still trusted one another. It was so different from her own people, who had been filled with formality and pride. These humans were rough, simple, but there was honesty in their ways. One evening, as she stood near the observation window watching stars drift by, Hound joined her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, looking at the endless black sea dotted. "With light, yes," she whispered, "but also lonely." Hound glanced at her. "Not if you have the right people with you." She smiled faintly. "You are strange, Captain. You fight for someone who has nothing to offer." Hound chuckled. "Maybe. Or maybe I see something in you others don't." "What do you see?" she asked quietly. He paused, then answered. "I see someone worth saving." Her heart trembled. No one had ever told her that before. Not her guards, not her people, not even her parents. At that moment, Elira made a silent vow of her own. She would not waste this gift. If this human was willing to protect her at all costs, then she would learn to be strong. She would not remain a helpless princess forever. But fate gave them no time to rest. 2 days later, the ship's alarms blared. Enemy signatures on the radar. Small ships approaching fast. Bounty hunters. The crew rushed to battle stations, panic rising. Vega shouted orders, guns armed, shields raised. Hound strapped on his rifle and turned to Elira. His eyes burned with the same fire as when he first found her. "Stay close, princess. They'll come for you first. But remember," he gave her a grim smile, "as long as I live, they'll never have you." Elira's small hands tightened into fists. Fear shook her body, but behind it, a spark of courage lit inside her chest. She whispered back, almost to herself, "Then I will not run. Not this time." The hunters closed in. The battle for the princess had begun. The alarms screamed across the ship, flashing red lights filling the narrow halls. "Multiple contacts incoming!" Vega shouted from the command deck. "5 ships, fast, armed, and heading straight for us." Captain Hound stood tall at the center console, his eyes fixed on the radar. Small red blips closed in from every side. "Bounty hunters," he muttered. "They found us quicker than I thought." The crew hurried to their stations, panic in their voices. "They'll tear us apart. They're too many. They want the princess." Hound's deep voice cut through the noise. "Then we fight. Everyone to stations. Shields up, guns hot. We don't run from dogs chasing bones." In the medbay, Princess Elira sat up as the ship shook from the first impact. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had heard battles before, the fall of her palace, the thunder of cannons. But this time was different. This time, the hunters came for her. She slipped out of bed and hurried down the corridor, ignoring her weak legs. She found Hound at the deck, shouting orders to his crew. His eyes were sharp, movements steady, like a soldier who had lived through countless fights. Elira clutched the door frame. "Captain, they are coming for me. Please, let me go. If you hand me over, they will leave you alone." Hound turned, his head, his glare fierce enough to silence her. "Never say that again," he growled. "A hound never gives up his ward. You're under my protection. End of story." She opened her mouth to argue, but his words struck her like steel. He wasn't joking. He meant every syllable. The first enemy ship fired. The freighter shook violently, sparks flying across the deck. "Shields down to 60%, Vega shouted. "Return fire," Hound ordered. The ship's cannons roared back, lighting up the dark void with bolts of energy. One bounty ship spun away in flames, but the others closed in tighter. Inside the ship, crew members scrambled to seal hatches as explosions rocked the halls. The bounty hunters were preparing to board. "They're coming in," Vega yelled. "Docking clamps on the starboard side." Hound grabbed his rifle and checked the magazine. He turned to his crew. "Hold the line," he commanded. "They'll be coming for the princess. Don't let them reach her." The hunters burst through the starboard hatch. They were a mix of species, scarred reptilian mercenaries, armored insectoids, and even a few desperate humans with cybernetic implants. Their weapons glowed red as they stormed the corridors. "Find the princess," one barked. "Alive if possible. The Empire pays double if she's breathing." Blaster fire filled the halls. Hound's crew fought back fiercely, but the hunters were relentless. Hound himself stood at the front, a wall of fury. His rifle barked with each shot, dropping enemy after enemy. He moved like a beast unleashed, protecting every inch of the corridor with his life. "Stay behind me," he barked to the younger crew, but the hunters kept coming. For every one that fell, 2 more took its place. Meanwhile, Illyra hid behind, a supply crate near the medbay, trembling. She could hear the chaos, the screams, the gunfire, the clash of steel. Her heart told her to run. Her legs begged her to hide. But then she remembered Hound's words. A hound never leaves his ward. As long as I live, they'll never have you. Tears welled in her eyes. He was risking everything for her. And what was she doing? Hiding. Helpless. Useless. "No," she whispered to herself. "Not again. Not like before." She looked around. On the wall hung a small emergency blaster meant for defense. Her hands shook as she grabbed it. The weapon felt heavy, unnatural, in her grip. But she forced her legs to move. In the next corridor, 2 hunters broke past the crew and rushed toward the medbay. Their footsteps pounded closer. Illyra's breath quickened. Her hands trembled on the blaster. She remembered the faces of her people, the way they abandoned her. She remembered lying under the rubble, waiting to die. Not this time. When the first hunter appeared in the doorway, snarling, Illyra pulled the trigger. The blaster cracked, the shot hitting the hunter square in the chest. He dropped instantly. The second froze, stunned that the princess herself was armed. Illyra screamed, fired again, and the second fell. Her body shook violently, her knees almost giving out. But she had done it. She had fought back. Hound arrived moments later, bloodied, but unbroken, rifle smoking in his hands. His eyes widened when he saw Illyra standing over the fallen hunters, blaster in hand. "You—" He stopped, then a fierce grin spread across his scarred face. "Well done, princess," she gasped for breath. I don't want to be helpless anymore." Hound nodded firmly. "Good, because helpless won't survive this galaxy." The battle raged on. More hunters boarded, their numbers threatening to overwhelm the humans. At one point, Vega shouted, "We can't hold them, Captain! There are too many!" But Hound only roared back, "Then we fight harder!" Side by side, humans and the princess fought. Illyra stayed close, using the blaster clumsily but bravely. She missed more than she hit, but the few shots that landed gave her confidence. Each time she pulled the trigger, she felt a piece of her old fear shatter. The crew watched in shock. The fragile alien princess, once weak and silent, now stood in the fire of battle. Finally, after hours that felt like days, the last hunter ship broke away, engines burning as it fled. The deck was filled with smoke. the walls scarred with blaster marks. Bodies of hunters littered the halls, the crew slumped against the walls, exhausted but alive. We did it, Vega breathed. Hound lowered his rifle, his chest heaving. For now. But they'll be back, stronger and in greater numbers. He turned to Illyra. She stood there, blaster still in hand, her silver skin covered in dust and sweat. Her eyes no longer carried only fear. They carried fire. You held your ground, Hound said. Didn't think you had it in you. Illyra's lips trembled into the faintest smile. Neither did I. That night, the crew patched wounds and repaired the ship. The mood was different now. They no longer saw Illyra as just a burden. They had watched her fight, seen her courage. Vega approached Hound quietly. She's changing. She's not the same weak girl we picked up. Hound nodded. Good. Because she'll need that fire if she wants to survive what's coming. Later, Illyra found Hound sitting alone in the observation deck, staring at the stars. She sat beside him, silent for a while. Finally, she spoke. I was afraid, so afraid. But when I saw them coming, I thought of you, of your promise, and I knew I couldn't hide anymore. Hound turned his head, studying her. Fear's normal. But what matters is what you do with it. Today you stood. That's more than most ever manage. Illyra looked out at the stars. Maybe I can be more than a useless princess. Maybe I can learn to fight. Hound smirked. Stick with me, kid. I'll teach you how to bite like a hound. For the first time since her world burned, Illyra laughed softly. But deep in her heart, she knew this was only the beginning. The hunters had tested them, and the Empire would not stop. She could not stay weak. She could not stay hidden, if she wanted. To survive, and if she wanted her people's memory to live, she would have to become stronger. The asteroid base was quiet, or at least it seemed quiet to anyone not listening carefully. Hollow metallic halls stretched in every direction, dimly lit by flickering lights. Dust drifted in the thin air, settling on crates, tools, and the old machinery the humans used to keep the base operational. Outside, jagged rocks glimmered in the void, floating silently in orbit around a dying star. Inside, Princess Illyra moved carefully across the hall, her boots clanging softly on the metal floor. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. She had come far since Captain Hound had saved her from the ruins of Elendor. She had faced bounty hunters, fought alongside humans, and survived. And now, she would learn to fight, not just to survive, but to protect herself. Hound watched her from across the room, leaning against the wall. His arms were crossed, his sharp eyes studying her every move. You're stiff, he said, his voice low. Relax. Fighting isn't just about muscles. It's about mind, reflexes, and heart. You need all three. Illyra nodded. I understand, Captain. But what if I fail? Hound's eyes softened. Then you fail, learn, and try again. Failing is part of growing stronger. But giving up? That's not an option. Over the next days, Illyra trained tirelessly. Hound taught her the basics of combat first, how to move quickly, how to dodge, and how to hold a weapon. She learned to use a blaster, to aim, and to anticipate an opponent's moves. Her small hands often slipped on the cold metal, and her silver skin bore new bruises from falls and impacts, but she did not stop. Slowly, she began to improve. Each day, her movements became sharper, faster, more confident. She began to stand, taller, her back straight, her head held high, and Hound noticed something else, something he hadn't expected. Not bad, he said one day as she ducked under a swing of a training staff. You're learning faster than most adults I've trained. You've got fire, Princess. Don't lose it. Elira's eyes sparkled. I won't, Captain. I won't ever be helpless again. The crew watched with mixed feelings. Vega, still wary, approached Hound one evening. Captain, she's changing, not just in skill, but in attitude. Soon she might not need our protection at all. Hound smirked, though his eyes remained serious. Maybe, but she will always need guidance. Don't forget, the Empire isn't going to let her walk freely. They'll come for her again, and next time it won't be small groups of hunters. It'll be the fleet. Vega's face paled. A fleet? Yes, Hound said grimly. A full Imperial strike. They want to erase her, and anyone protecting her. That includes us. Elira overheard the conversation from the hallway. Her stomach tightened. Fear had never left her completely, even with Hound's protection. But now her fear was different. It fueled determination. That night she stood before the observation window, staring at the stars. I have to be ready, she whispered to herself. If they come, I can't be weak. I won't be weak. Hound found her there, silent and thoughtful. He didn't speak at first. Then he said quietly, You're thinking too much about what's coming. Focus on what you can control. She turned to him. And what if I'm not enough? Hound's eyes softened. You are. But even if you're not, we'll make a way together. That's what we do. That's what humans do. Days later, the Empire made their first move. A fleet of Imperial scouts entered the nearby system, scanning for the freighter and the asteroid base. Hound gathered the crew in the command room. They're here, he said simply, and they won't leave until they find her. Or they destroy us trying. The crew went silent, tension thick in the air. Elira stepped forward. Captain, I want to help. I want to be part of the defense. Vega frowned. Princess, it's dangerous. Dangerous doesn't scare me anymore, Elira interrupted. I've trained. I've learned. I can fight. Hound looked at her carefully, then nodded. Very well. But remember, this isn't a game. You follow orders. You cover yourself. You survive. She nodded, heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. When the first Imperial ships came into view, the asteroid base lit up with defense turrets and energy shields. Hound coordinated the crew, calling out orders with precision. Elira manned a small blaster turret under his supervision, her hands steady despite the shaking of the base. Each shot she fired hit its mark. She watched as Imperial scouts fell, one by one, and a spark of pride ignited inside her. You're good, Hound said, leaning beside her. Better than I expected, she smiled faintly. I'm learning from the best. Hound smirked. Flattery won't save you if they get past the shields. The battle raged for hours. Elira stayed at her post, firing, dodging, and assisting, wherever needed. She began to anticipate enemy movements, shouting warnings to the crew. At one point, an Imperial boarding ship broke through. Elira grabbed a rifle, her hands firm, and ran to intercept. She found herself face to face with a tall, armored soldier, his eyes cold. Princess, Hound's voice echoed behind her. Remember what I taught you. Elira nodded. She fired first, dodged the counterattack, and used the soldier's momentum to knock him off balance. She felt a rush of adrenaline as she realized she could actually hold her own. Hound's eyes gleamed with pride. See, you're not helpless, she laughed, a sound filled with relief and joy. I'm strong. After the battle, the base was in disarray. The crew patched the damaged systems and tended to the wounded. Elira walked among them, her small frame holding herself with a new confidence. She no longer hid in corners or doubted herself. Vega approached her quietly. Princess, you surprised all of us. You're not just surviving, you're leading. Even Hound, he respects you now. Elira blushed faintly. I'm still learning. I still have a long way to go. Hound appeared behind her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Long way to go, yes. But today you proved you belong among us. Not as a princess hiding, but as someone who fights, someone with worth. Elira's heart swelled. Worth. She had never felt it before. Not when everyone abandoned her, not when she hid in the ruins. Now, for the first time, she felt it. The following days, the news of the human-protected princess spread across nearby systems. Some alien factions who had once ignored her began to pay attention. Rumors spread that the Princess of Elendor survived, and that she fought alongside humans, an unusual alliance that sparked whispers of hope among the oppressed. Hound watched the news with a serious face. "It's getting bigger," he said. "They'll send more, a lot more. We need to prepare." Elira nodded. She had learned quickly that hope was only as strong as the people willing to fight for it. And with Hound at her side, she was ready to fight. Late one night, Hound and Elira trained together in the empty corridor. Blasters fired, movements clashed, and each dodge and strike taught her a little more about control, focus, and courage. "You're improving," Hound said, panting slightly. "But the real test isn't skill, it's fear. You've got to control it, use it." "I think I'm ready," she said quietly, wiping sweat from her brow. Hound's gaze softened. "Then the galaxy better watch out, because you're no longer the helpless princess they abandoned. You're someone they'll have to respect, and maybe someone they'll fear." Elira smiled faintly. She knew he was right. She had grown from the weak girl hiding under rubble to a fighter with fire in her heart. The galaxy was quiet, but only for a moment. The freighter drifted through a dark sector, shields humming, engines glowing. Outside, stars shone like scattered diamonds. But there was tension in the air, heavy and sharp, like the calm before, a storm. Captain Hound stood on the command deck, his eyes scanning the radar. His jaw tightened as he spotted the approaching fleet, dozens of Imperial warships, massive and armed to the teeth. Their purpose was clear. Destroy the asteroid base, capture Princess Elira, and erase anyone who dared to protect her. "They've come," Hound said quietly, gripping the console. "And this time, they won't stop until they get her." Elira stood beside him, her posture steady, her hands on the railing. The Princess of Elendor had come a long way from the girl hiding under rubble. She had trained with Hound, learned to fight, and discovered courage she never knew she had. Now the time had come to prove it. "Captain, we can't run forever," she said softly. "We have to fight." Hound nodded. "Exactly. And today, we fight together." The crew rushed to battle stations. Blasters hummed, energy shields. Powered up and defensive turrets locked onto the approaching fleet. Vega coordinated the team, her sharp voice cutting through the tension. "Shields at full! Cannons ready! Hound, your orders!" Hound took a deep breath. "Form defensive lines around the base. Protect the princess at all costs. I don't care what it takes. We survive, we fight, we win." Elira's heart raced. The hum of energy shields, the blare of alarms, and the distant fire of approaching ships filled her with a strange mixture of fear and excitement. "This is it," she thought. "I am not helpless anymore." The first Imperial ship fired. Energy beams slammed into the asteroid base, sending sparks and debris flying. Crew members scrambled, shields flaring to absorb the hits. Elira ducked, gripping a blaster in her hands. "I can do this," she whispered. "I will do this." Hound moved beside her. "Remember your training. Move fast, aim true, and never hesitate." She nodded and fired. Her blaster's shots hit an incoming enemy drone, exploding it into shards of metal. Her confidence grew with every successful strike. The crew watched in awe as the princess continued to fight. dodging falling debris and blasting attackers with precision. She was no longer the fragile girl hiding under rubble. She was a warrior. The battle escalated. Imperial fighters swarmed the freighter, attempting to board. Hound led the crew into the corridors, firing blasters, blocking entrances, and holding the line. Illyra ran alongside him, her small frame darting between shots, her aim steady despite the chaos. A massive armored soldier broke through a side corridor, charging at Illyra. She froze for a moment, fear creeping in. But then she remembered the promise, the captain's loyalty, the lives of her crew, and the people who had abandoned her. No, she would not run. She fired her blaster repeatedly, hitting his armor weak points. Sparks flew, the soldier stumbled, and with a swift kick she sent him crashing into the wall. Her chest heaved, but she didn't stop. She was fighting. She was alive. She was powerful. Hound watched, pride in his eyes. "That's my princess," he muttered. Outside the asteroid base, the larger fleet attacked. Massive energy beams tore through space, colliding with shields and sending shockwaves through the rocks. The base trembled, but the crew stayed steady, following Hound's orders. Illyra moved from turret to turret, helping crew members aim, firing shots herself and shouting warnings about incoming fighters. Her voice was firm, confident, carrying authority despite her young age. "Move left! Shields weakening! Incoming strike!" she yelled, directing the team with clarity that surprised even the seasoned crew. Vega glanced at Hound. "She's leading them." Hound's lips curved in a small, proud smile. "I told you. She's no longer helpless." Hours passed, the battle raging on relentlessly. Several Imperial ships were destroyed, but more kept coming. Illyra's arms ached, her back burned, and her silver skin was covered in sweat and dust. But she refused to stop. She thought of Elendor, her ruined palace, and the people who abandoned her. She thought of Hound, who never left her side. And she thought of the galaxy. Where hope seemed lost, she would not fail. She could not fail. At a critical moment, an enormous Imperial warship broke through the defenses, firing a massive energy cannon directly at the asteroid base. The crew panicked, knowing that a hit would destroy everything. Hound barked orders. "Divert all power to shields. Prepare boarding countermeasures." Illyra, seeing the massive ship's weak spot at the energy conduits on its side, shouted, "Captain, I can hit the conduits. It might disable their main cannon." Hound's eyes narrowed. "It's dangerous, but it might work. You ready?" "I'm ready," she said firmly. Hound assigned 2 crew members to cover her. She climbed into a small fighter craft, the engines roaring to life. Hound's voice echoed through the comms. "Stay sharp. You've trained for this. Hit the conduits. Then return. Don't take unnecessary risks." Illyra nodded. Her heart raced, but her hands were steady. She weaved through enemy fire, dodging lasers, and closing the distance to the massive ship. She remembered every lesson Hound had taught her: speed, precision, control, and courage. The Imperial ship fired continuously, missing narrowly as she darted between shots. Sweat ran down her face, but she didn't falter. She lined up her shot, aimed at the glowing conduits, and fired. The ship shuddered violently. Sparks and smoke erupted from the exposed areas. Its massive cannon collapsed, rendering the threat neutral. Illyra let out a victorious cheer over the comms. Hound's voice came back, filled with pride. "Excellent shot, Princess. That's how a warrior fights." Inspired by her success, the crew redoubled their efforts. They launched counterattacks, targeting weak points in the enemy fleet. Illyra moved among the battle stations, coordinating attacks, firing at approaching fighters, and providing support wherever needed. She had become more than a survivor. She had become a leader. Finally, after hours of relentless battle, the remaining Imperial ships retreated. Smoke, fire, and debris filled the space around the asteroid base, but the humans and the princess had survived. The freighter floated among the wreckage, battered but intact. The crew slumped in exhaustion, but their eyes were alive with pride and relief. Elira stepped onto the observation deck, staring out at the fleeing Imperial fleet. She had never felt stronger. She had fought. She had led. She had survived. Hound joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did it, Princess. You fought like a true leader. Today you earned your place in the galaxy, not as a helpless princess, but as a fighter, a survivor, and someone the Empire will never forget." Tears filled her eyes, but they were tears of triumph. I did it," she whispered. "You did," Hound said firmly. "And you'll do more. There are more battles ahead. But today, you proved your worth, and I am proud of you." In the following weeks, the news spread across the nearby systems. Stories of the princess who fought alongside humans inspired hope in worlds oppressed by the Empire. Aliens who had once ignored Elendor's fall began to whisper of rebellion. Elira's heart swelled with purpose. She would not stop here. She would continue to fight, to grow stronger, and to honor those who had abandoned her by protecting those who could not protect themselves. And she would never forget the human who had saved her, not only from death, but from hopelessness. Captain Hound had shown her what true loyalty meant, and she would carry that lesson through every challenge to come. In the quiet of the observation deck, Hound and Elira stood together, looking at the stars. "You've changed the galaxy today," Hound said quietly, "and you've changed yourself." "I've learned from the best," Elira said with a small smile. Hound chuckled. "Then the galaxy better watch out, because a princess with fire and a human who never abandons her is unstoppable." Elira's gaze drifted to the stars. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and full of enemies. But she no longer felt fear. She felt strength, courage, and purpose. The Princess of Elendor was no longer forgotten. She had fought back. She had survived. And she had become more than anyone could have imagined. The galaxy would remember her, and those who stood by her side forever.